Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another ETIP Ocean webinar. Today we are collaborating with IEA-OES, so Ocean Energy Systems, and we will be talking about the use of internationally agreed performance metrics in project development, especially when it comes to Horizon Europe applications in ocean energy. My name is Lotta Virtima. I'm a Senior Policy Officer at Ocean Energy Europe, and we coordinate ETIP Ocean, the European Technology and Innovation Platform, together with the University of Edinburgh and Technalia. And we have a packed agenda today. So we have different perspectives on using the evaluation guidance framework. First, we'll hear from the European Commission, Matthias Sude, introducing the calls and the importance of these performance metrics. And Jonathan from Weymouth, Scotland, will talk about the IEA-OES evaluation and guidance framework and what it means to applicants. And Pablo from Technalia will give a kind of like his perspective as a user and experience. And then we'll hear comments as well from Henry from the University of Edinburgh. And if you have any questions during the presentations, we will have time for Q&A after all the speakers. So put those in the Q&A box, and we will then take them after the presentation towards the end of the webinar. With that, I will give the floor directly to Matthias Sude from DGRTD, the European Commission.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Maybe Lotta, it's good to know that this meeting as well, or this webinar is recorded and also will be published on the ETIP Ocean website so that people are aware of that.
Exactly.
So
Thanks.
for transparency, I think, to people who can't join today in the webinar, so that they can have a look later on. Thank you for setting this up, Lotta. And I think this is because we received a question earlier this year. What is in fact this international recognized metrics, which the Commission is referring to in their calls for proposals in Horizon Europe? That was the idea then, okay, maybe it would be better even to set up this webinar to explain a bit what it is about and how we can use it. Okay, I will first, I think, the use of it in general in our calls. And the question, and let me have a look. Can you see now the full screen, Lotta?
Not yet. It's not the presenter mode yet.
Like this? I hope it works.
No, not yet. Maybe try to move it to the other screen if you have. Oh, okay, still no?
It's not working.
Maybe stop sharing and then try again and choose the second screen. That's what I did earlier.
I leave it like this. Is this fine?
I mean, we can still see it. It's just
okay.
not
It's
full
big
screen,
enough so then you can see. Anyway, we have a topic open. Sorry for this interruption a bit. We have at the moment a topic open: critical technology for the future ocean energy farms. I'm just going very quickly through it. The scope is to develop a couple of new technologies. There are 4 areas. Components and systems used in ocean energy devices need to be resistant. The second topic, and you can read this in our work program as such, is the design of sustainable tailored mooring and connection of electrical and other power transmission systems. Advanced combined mooring and electrical connectors we are looking for to really advance in that area. Instrumentation for condition monitoring and predictive maintenance of ocean energy devices. apply recent advances in condition and structural health monitoring from other sectors to ocean energy, apply latest sensor technology. We see that as a critical area as well for the future ocean energy farms. And yeah, also can we use artificial intelligence in the ocean energy technology development, develop or apply advanced simulation of ocean energy systems, use of big data. And these are 4 areas in our calls for critical technology for the future ocean energy farm. But when you read very carefully, then there are some conditions which you for the areas, and they say, okay, we would like to improvements in discrete technology should be developed holistically. Work on monitoring instruments should be consistent with the work on more connections. Low impact on the environment, on ecosystem biodiversity. Projects should not have a significant harm on the environment. But then we say it's expected that key performance indicators are used based on international recognized metrics. And when you look into this framework, and this has been one has been set up by the OES TCP on the ocean energy systems, and there have been a couple of publications, and Jonathan will later on explain this. Having been setting up some evaluation areas which are of attention for especially wave energy technology development, but I think what has been proposed can be used in many other areas as well. What we see is in technology development is very important to consider already from the start of the development to look to different performance indicators. When you develop something and you think later on, okay, when it will come into the market, what would be needed? And so that when you develop something that you really have already these areas in mind, and also define key performance indicators. What is sufficiently good? When can we go, in fact, to the next stage? And I think that's something important to keep in mind. But we will discuss this later on, or Jonathan will discuss it, and Pablo in this workshop. But we see that the use of these international metrics is very helpful as well for evaluators to assess the proposals. Are developers sufficiently having these evaluation areas, the key performance indicators in mind? And that's and we noticed as well that experts are really using that, and also from the Commission with monitoring of the projects, that they are looking into this. Okay, but how good is the technology? What should be done? So that's why it is, but it is relatively new, and it will, get onto its way. On the call itself, projects should demonstrate how improvements can be applied to multiple different ocean energy devices in this call, because it's about critical technologies. Okay, but the last part, and normally in our calls we have some expected outcomes that is about increased performance of ocean energy technologies, improved knowledge, and also reduction of the costs. And just for your information, we have this call open, and that may be new for some people. The closing date was the 21st of January 2025, but it will be now the 4th of February 2025. So a few, no, in fact, 2 weeks more to finalize your project proposals. EU contribution per project will be 4 million. We will fund 2 projects, and it is on the lower TRL. But today's webinar is mainly on this stage gate metrics, and I'm really looking forward to Jonathan has to tell us. Lotta, to you.
Great, thanks, Matthias. I think we have, I'm sure we have many potential applicants here in the room today. So thanks for that overview. Now let's move on to Jonathan Hodges, who will talk about the IEA-OES framework. We can see your full screen now.
Excellent. Thank you, Lotta. Thank you, Matthias. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan Hodges from Wave Energy Scotland. I'm Innovation and Strategy Manager, and I've been leading this task on performance metrics for the OES group for the past few years. And it's an activity that's been going on within OES for nearly a decade now. So we've developed some quite strong recommendations, which we think will be very useful. So the contents I intend to present this morning are about stage gate metrics themselves and the involvement of IEA-OES, Ocean Energy Systems, in that, the publications that have been made over the last few years, and then I want to talk specifically about the OES Framework second edition, which is the current edition of the document available now, and the contents of it. And then most importantly, I want to explain what the adoption status is and the benefits that the framework gives to different users, and then some explicit implications for applicants, which might be quite a contradiction in terms, but I think that's quite an interesting discussion of what's explicit in a call text and what's implied by the application and the adoption of the OES framework. All the logos you can see on the right hand side are the organisations that have contributed to the development of this framework over the past decade through various workshops and engagement events of all different types of users. So first of all, stage gate metrics and the IEA-OES. What's the reasons for the Ocean Energy Systems platform program being involved and interested in stage gate metrics? And that is really to be able to support across the whole sector the development of ocean energy technology, wave and tidal stream technology. So the target users of the task and of the publications through this task are primarily public funders. That was the original intent of the task, was to support public funders. But then we found through the process of developing these recommendations that technology developers and private investors have both been involved heavily in the development and also can benefit significantly from the recommendations. So what were the objectives? First of all, to support public funders' decision making, to allow them to make the best decisions to most efficiently use public funds to support this technology development for the benefit of all in the sector, and to be able to accelerate technology development. What we have published in the top level is the International Evaluation and Guidance Framework for Ocean Energy Technologies. And the top level benefits of that are that it provides the ability to speak common language of all interested stakeholders. It recommends stages and stage activities and evaluation areas and evaluation criteria, which Matthias mentioned. And I'll go into some more detail of what those are. But that slide gives you an idea of why OES is involved and what is intended by the provision of these recommendations to the sector. So these are the publications that have been made. The first edition was published in January 2021, and we were looking for feedback from the sector, from all kinds of stakeholders, which was received, was very welcomely received, and has contributed to further development since. There is an interesting link between these recommendations and other guidance, other sources of guidance in the sector, such as the IEC and the IEC-RE. So we produced a document that shows just how complementary this guidance is with other available guidance across the sector in the second document. We've been working hard to promote uptake of the recommendations by public funders all around the world. So we produced a very high level introductory document, 1 or 2 pages, that says what's the requirement for technology development, performance metrics and guidance in 4 different languages. And then based on feedback that we received across the sector, we updated the document in October 2023 with the second edition you can see on the right there, and that's the one that we'll talk about today. So what does the second edition contain? It has 4 key components. First is a clear set of stages, technology development stages, which you can see in the middle of the slide, going from stage 0, concept creation, through concept development, design optimization, all the way up to stage 5, which is the commercial scale array demonstration stage. So the development process is segmented into those different components, which are aligned to technology readiness levels and add real value to the technology readiness scale. On the right, you can see the second component, which Matthias mentioned, which is the set of evaluation areas. And these are the key characteristics, the key areas of technology measurement where a good wave and tidal technology needs to perform well. So examples being good power capture, power conversion, all the way through to survivability, installability, all of the key areas that are required. In the second edition, we added environmental acceptability, and we're now working on social readiness, which is an increasingly important consideration in technology development and R&D activities. Within each of those stages and within each of those evaluation areas, the framework also recommends stage activities. So these are the engineering and other activities that should be done in each stage to have a rigorous development process. And then evaluation criteria, and these are the actual engineering measures or parameters that are used to measure each of those evaluation areas, and those evolve as you go through the stages. And as I mentioned on the last slide, we have key alignments with other complementary guidance. For example, the IEC standards, where you have an evaluation criteria, the framework recommends where there is more detailed guidance from the IEC of how to calculate those. So what we often say is that this framework says what you should do, and then IEC standards add increasing detail on how you should do that. So that's the content of the second edition of the OES framework. Adoption and benefits. So we've noticed throughout our experience over the past few years that we have three types of adoption. First of all, active funder adoption, and the European Commission is an excellent example of active funder adoption, where they actively take the recommendations of the OES framework and use it to design a funding program to provide clear expectations to applicants, and that covers not only how good a technology is, but how complete and rigorous the technology development process is that has delivered it. So being able to show prerequisite technology development activity, what have you done before? To be able to show expectation of data and outcomes, both to be able to show how well the technology performs, but also how effective the R&D activity has been and how efficiently the funding has been used. To be able to show the key areas of technology attractiveness through those evaluation areas and have R&D focused on improving those areas. And really importantly, on the relationship between the funder and the applicant, using the definitions and common language to be able to understand each other's expectations and understand each other's applications. So active funder adoption allows a funder to be able to evaluate and compare technology using a consistent data set. So the funder is able to explicitly say, these are the bits of information I want in order to be able to evaluate your application and your technology. The applicant understands that and can provide the required information, thereby giving a good application and increasing their chances of success. And being able to have that application and the data that comes out at the end of the project allows a funder to be able to monitor progress, be able to monitor risks, and demonstrate the impact of the funding that they have provided. So active funder adoption is the real, the main way that the impact of the framework can be maximized. We've also found passive funder adoption, where perhaps a funder around the world doesn't have a specific wave and tidal funding call, but they do benefit in their general renewable energy calls by improved applications from developers. And that brings us to the third bit, which is technology developer adoption, which is really the main focus for me of this webinar, is to be able to explain to developers when they apply to calls like the one that Matthias has just introduced, how application of the framework's recommendations allows them to improve their application. So benefits that have been shared with us by developers are being able to clearly understand funder expectations, being able to build a clear narrative into their applications of how they respond to the particular requirements of that call, being able to demonstrate their technology performance in past projects and their plan for illustrating it in the proposed project using the right application of metrics and the right application of evaluation criteria, being able to respond with the right language that the funder is going to be able to tick off against their requirements, and a clear communication between the two, be able to provide the right data. And really, we've been finding that developers find it easy to adopt because it aligns clearly with their own technology development and other guidance around the sector. So those are the adoption and benefit status that we have seen so far. And I've got 3 slides now which talk about what are the benefits of application of these recommendations for applicants, and really what does a funder mean when they include a line like use of internationally adopted framework and guidance and key performance indicators. So first of all, as I said at the beginning, I've got this title of explicit implications for applicants. Some things are explicitly required in a call text, and other things are implied by adoption of the evaluation and guidance framework or other guidance. And I think the use of this framework and the recommendations within it really helps an applicant to add detail to their proposal, which gives a complete understanding to an assessor of the experience and the intention and the expectations that a project has for developing technology. So in one of the first areas, what stage of development or maturity is expected by the funder? So the use of key performance indicators doesn't only say how good is your technology, but it looks at using the OES framework to specify what activities should have already been completed by a technology developer to be eligible for a funding call. So it's really valuable for an applicant to use the stage activities to look at the prerequisites in the call in terms of TRL or stages, depending on the call, to be able to say, I have already done the things that I should have done. My technology is suitably mature for this call, and I can show that I've demonstrated the required activities in the previous project, and that I will do the required activities in the planned project. So I think that's a really valuable addition to the text in the call in some cases, to be able to say this is implied in the TRL that is requested, and here's how I can demonstrate exactly what I've done and what I intend to do against those things. So that's the first thing, to be able to add detail of the appropriate development or maturity that's expected by the funder. The second thing is about making sure that that an applicant is responding to the right technology characteristics that the funder wants to demonstrate or improve by releasing this funding call. So a funder uses the OES framework to show its definition of success, and an applicant rather can use the evaluation areas in the guidance document to plan the design, development, and demonstration activities that are included in the proposed project. And they can use the definitions that are included in the document to speak the same language as the funder. And I think this is a really important link, because between the funder and the applicant, there are the expert evaluators. And if you're able to speak to those expert evaluators in the language that they're expecting and the definitions they're expecting, to be able to demonstrate what they see in the recommended guidance and what they're expecting, then that relationship's going to be much more smooth, and you've got a much better chance of scoring high scores if you're ticking the boxes that they're expecting. So using that language, and there's an example there of reliability, but there's a definition of each of the evaluation areas in the guidance document. So being able to add to the explicit requirements of other things which are clearly seen as important by the sector to be able to demonstrate a good project, a good technology, and a good process. And the third one is all about data and which parameters you use. So funders use the OES framework to be able to demonstrate that international consensus exists on what parameters are important and how a technology or a project is going to be assessed by the evaluators, both at the beginning of the project when they're choosing projects, but also at completion, to be able to say, how well has this technology progressed? How does it compare against other projects and other technologies? And demonstrate to the governments effectively of what progress have we made using this funding. So actions for an applicant are to use the evaluation criteria as recommended, to be able to plan your evaluation methodologies and data outputs. You can add more parameters as appropriate, but there are key ones in there that will allow an evaluator, an expert, to be able to say, they understand what's been done before, how well the technology has performed up till now, how it will be measured in the project, and what they expect to see at the end. And again, where appropriate, there will be guidance from organizations like the IEC and their technical specifications of exactly how you do that. So being able to align those together and say exactly what's going to be demonstrated and how that will be done will give very strong understanding by an evaluator of what to expect and how to evaluate that technology. So for an example below, for the evaluation area of power capture, the framework gives you 2 parameters of how that should be measured, the format that should be presented in, and it tells you which IEC technical specification gives you more detail on how to do that. So it should be very clear which language to use and how to present that to an evaluator. So just to summarize, in terms of adoption and benefits, benefits shared by funders are all about the ability to design a funding program, provide clear expectations to applicants in those 4 areas of prerequisite technology development, what's been done before, the expectation of data and outcomes, both of measuring performance of previous projects and technologies and what's expected out at the end of this project, showing that a technology development project is covering the key areas of technology attractiveness, and using those definitions and that common language helps an evaluator be able to understand the proposal. It gives the funder themselves the ability to evaluate and compare technologies using a consistent data set, and it provides governments the ability to monitor and report progress, risks, and impacts. And on the other side, and very strongly linked to that, benefits that have been shared by developers so far show that they use it to be able to understand the funder's expectations in more detail than is perhaps presented in some call text. Build a clear narrative of where they've come from, where they're going to, and how they meet the requirements of international consensus on good technology development, and how they demonstrate performance using common language, common data, and overall, the framework's easy to adopt because it aligns well with what is expected by technology developers and funders, having had both those organizations involved in development of it. So I'll stop there and I will pass back to Lotta. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think it's really useful to see how the use of the guidance can reduce the room of interpretation of the call text, so that applicants know exactly what the funder is looking for. Really interesting. I have a few questions on my side, but let's take them at the end and move on to Pablo, who will talk about his perspective and relevant tools related to the framework.
Thank you, Lotta. Yeah, I will share my screen, minimize this, and okay. Thank you, Lotta, Matthijs, and Jonathan for the previous presentations. I'm Pablo Ruiz-Minguela, I'm head of Wave Energy Projects at Tecnalia. I contributed to the development of the framework, but today I will be speaking more about my experience as a user of the framework, in particularly on how to assess the readiness of an ocean energy technology or subsystem using the framework. So I'll cover just a recap on Jonathan's presentation and move on to how to self-assess yourself as an applicant, which mainly involve checking your activities and the evaluation criteria, and put an illustrative example on this. So as Jonathan explained, the framework focuses on technology development stages and evaluation areas, and it is important to pay attention to the stage activities and evaluation criteria that not in every funding topic or call are explicitly mentioned. Yeah. The stage activities are obviously used to check these prerequisites and demonstrate your compliance against them, and particularly stages which fairly align with TRLs might help you to see where which stage of development you are. So if assuming as in the slide that you are moving in a funding call from a stage 4 to a stage 5, and taking as an example the power capture, that this is one of the evaluation areas that should be mentioned in the call as some of the expected outcomes, then you can browse the guide and look at the activities which will cover the detailed scope of what you should have achieved on that respect in order to qualify to being able to submit a quality project to that call. And if you look at the intended exit TRL or the stage activity, then it will give you some suggestions of the technical work that you will develop in your work plan by looking at the bullet points that say what is the typical activities that you need to include in order to successfully address all of the requirements at the stage 5 in this case. This can be done. The framework is publicly available and you can use it, but we have also some tools where this framework is can be more easily implemented or more flexible for you. So there was a previous European funded project called ETIP Ocean Plus, which produced an integrated open source suite of modular design tools for ocean energy systems. It is fully documented on that link, and it can be downloaded and installed either in full or by different modules. You can, for instance, install the so-called stage gate tool, which have functionalities that are relevant for this checking of your eligibility. In particular, it includes the stage gate framework that is suggested in the international guidance, an activity checklist, which is what I would like to concentrate today on, and it can be used either by applicants or by funders in order to assess and compare different projects and proposals, and also involves has a feature for report generation where you can have the results in a more friendly manner. So, as I said, the activity checklist will present a set of activities that needs to be completed at each stage, and they are organized either by activity categories or by evaluation area. So you can choose or move from one to the other, and you will be prompted by what it is required. These are extracts from the framework, and will help you identify the technology readiness level for your device, technology, subsystem component. Yeah, and as a result, it will include as outputs a summary of the status of the technology in terms of stages completed in full or partially, and a list of the completed and outstanding activities with a percentage and the type of activity that has been completed in that particular stage. And as I said, it will allow you to generate a standardized report summarizing all the input and output data by using this tool. I'll talk about an illustrative example that we have experience with in another European project where we wanted to assess the stage of development of different technologies. In that project, we collaborated with 3 technology developers called Power Ocean, EDOM, and Wave Piston. Yeah, and I put some results, but due to confidentiality of the results, I won't say which technology refers to. And in this case, the three technology developers assess themselves in terms of the activities that were needed to be completed in order to develop and validate a subsystem, in this case, PTO component. And these activities, well, in the slide, you see that the respondent said that they have successfully completed stage 2 activities, and to a certain extent, a high percentage of stage 3 activities. As you can see, there are cases where even if you are at this stage 3 development, you might have completed or progressed some other activities in further stages. And the report produced have some activity categories, is reported by activity categories. You can see that at this stage 3, the open water testing is lacking, which is consistent with the stage of development. And there are other things that were not very fully developed, as greenhouse emission or the complete validation of numerical models. In terms of evaluation areas, you can see the percentage of accomplishment with regards of the targets that has been foreseen for these technologies, with some two major lacks that also are related to the lack of information in order to assess the availability or the manufacturability, in this case, because the device has not been manufactured in order to test it in real conditions. So basically, well, this is an illustrative example, and as I mentioned, this is not for the full device. Yes, to finish up, 2 words of advice. The wording in the guideline and framework for the evaluation of ocean energy technologies has been developed with a mindset of the full device. So I recommend you adapt the language to the scope of the funding call, the relevant funding call. And second is that we have identified that when you tackle a certain subsystem, maybe not all the evaluation areas are as important as others. So this is also to take into consideration, but also look at the expected outcomes that will guide you around the most impactful evaluation areas that are sought by the funder in the call. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pablo. I think that's really interesting. Would you mind putting the link for the DigiOcean Plus tool in the chat? Maybe for...
Yeah, I will stop sharing. I put it in the chat.
Just put in the chat for everyone for after the webinar to go and see.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. You can stop share. Yeah, great. Now I can see you all. So now I would like to give the floor to Henry for some insights and comments on what we've just seen. Henry, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks very much, Lotta, and thanks very much to all the speakers. I think we've had a great overview from Matthijs on the European Commission's position, Jonathan on the detail of the...
Sorry, Henry, your sound is a little bit muffled. Can you speak a little bit closer to your computer mic?
Is that better?
Try to speak a bit.
Is that better now?
Yes, that's better. Thanks.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, thank you again, Lotta. And we've heard, good presentations from Matthijs in the European Commission, Jonathan on the detail of the stage-gate metrics, and Pablo with some tools and examples of how that's used. What I'd like to do in a few minutes as a warm-up, if people start to think about their questions that they have for each of the speakers, is to give my experience as a reviewer, reviewing proposals over the past 10 or 15 years, when I've acted as a reviewer for countries around the world on their innovation programs for wave and tidal, where I will have reviewed literally hundreds of proposals over that time. And I think that the stage gate metrics have made significant improvement to both the quality of proposals and the quality of reviewing of those proposals. Because what it does is it removes ambiguity from the process. It gives the opportunity for the funder to be more explicit with regard to what they're looking for, and it also gives much more guidance to the proposer with regard to whether this funding call is for them. And so if I think back, 10 or 15 years when I would see funding calls come out and they would be just labelled as like low TRL, we invite proposals for subsystems and devices up to TRL X, and that's worth, maximum contribution of 400k. And then for the next stage of it, there will be a call, in the same year saying that they're looking for TRL, slightly higher TRL, and it's worth 4 million. Then whether it's because a developer is either seduced by the higher funding level, or it's not clear what the break line is between the low TRL and high TRL, then the stage gate metrics removes that ambiguity. It makes it very clear as to sort of who should be applying for the low TRL or the stage that you're at or whatever, and guidance is now given referring back to the stage gate metrics and what's expected for the high TRL. And that's of value to both the reviewers, the funders, and to the applicants. The applicants don't waste their time, and the reviewers don't have proposals that are being reviewed that are really unsuitable. So I think there's advantages on both sides there. And the example that I like to give is you see in funding calls very often the words tested in a real sea environment. And being explicit about what that means is extremely important, because tested in a real sea environment can mean different things to different people. So that could be testing your device in a very sheltered location at part scale with limited success. Or it could mean testing your device at full scale in the Biliacrew test site at EMEC in very full scale conditions, tested for 1 year with like a fully populated power matrix. Those things are both tested in a full scale or a real sea environment, but those are two very different things. And so that ambiguity as to what that means is now being removed by the stage gate metrics. When it's asking for tested in a real sea environment, the stage gate metric that Jonathan has shown you, has very explicit conditions as to what that means. And it doesn't mean tested in a sheltered condition for a week with limited success at part scale. That means the latter. It means tested at full scale in a very realistic environment for a year or more with successful outcomes. And so for me, that is probably the main benefit of the stage gate metrics, both to the applicants and to the funders. So it allows, I think that my advice to applicants rather than to the funders, well, I think I'll maybe start with my advice to the funders using it is to be explicit. Don't be vague. Rather than just saying, agree with the IEA metrics, maybe being explicit as to which areas you want them to focus on until you're done. So I think there is a role as to how we improve this process to be explicit as a funder as to what you're asking for. But also my then advice to the applicants is being clear in what you've written. Don't be vague with regard to what you've written. If you have met the requirements of the metric, be clear about sort of what you've done, because it is very difficult for a reviewer. If you're vague, they will want to dig deeper and find out whether you have met the requirements or not. And so being explicit with regard to what you've written and how you've written it. So I would say that the stage gate metrics, in my opinion, as a reviewer, have been extremely successful. It's removed ambiguity. It's improved things for both the applicants and for the funders. And hopefully that gives like sort of a warm up to my opinion as to how it's working overall in the funding landscape. It ensures that the best technologies are funded and taken forward, which which is a benefit to those technologies and to the credibility of the sector overall. So that's all I was going to say, Lotte, but hopefully that's helped set the scene, and people will have thought of some questions that they'd like to ask either myself or of the panelists as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Henry. Definitely, I agree with what you said, and I hope that we continue to use this in European or national and regional funding goals for ocean energy. While participants type their questions in the Q&A box, I would like to open the floor to all our panelists today. If you have any additional thoughts or comments or questions at this stage, feel free to jump in before we go into the questions.
I just think it's really interesting hearing Henry talk there about interpretation, and I think we've come a long way in this sector of the way that we present funding calls to avoid people being able to or accidentally interpreting funding calls in the wrong way, so that we can direct our public funding around the world in different regions, different authorities at the key challenges that this sector faces. It links very strongly to some of the work that ETIP Ocean's been doing recently on the strategic research and innovation agenda, to be able to say, here are the challenges the sector faces. How should we respond to them? What should we measure? What technology development activities we should carry out to respond to those things? So I think it's good to see that, but as Henry said, there's still progress to be made, perhaps in just how explicit we can be. Especially as we get to later stages of development and we have very specific challenges we need to respond to. So I think that's exactly right, that reducing that opportunity to interpret things wrongly or differently to the intent of the funder and the objective of the sector is a really key opportunity for us.
Thanks, Jonathan. I see we have some questions coming in, so I'll take a couple of those now. There's the question whether there will be a continuation of the DT Ocean Plus or something similar in the coming couple of years. Pablo, do you know of any future projects continuing that work?
Yeah, well, the project is finished, as I mentioned, that the partners has been using the tools and correcting gaps and extending a bit functionality, mainly within other funded projects, which made a bit of progress and taking the tools alive, but it didn't allow to significantly go to the pace of the needs of the sector and its evolving. Secondly, Jonathan mentioned the strategic research and innovation agenda. We consider within one of the challenges the development of advanced software design tools for ocean energy. This could be the matter of future funding topic, but it's not up to us to tell. It's to see whether this responds to the real needs or the most urgent needs of the sector. And if this is the case, well, we will be glad of continuing the work that has been done previously within this framework, DT Ocean. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that, Pablo. Moving on to our next question. If an application has two major focus areas with different TRLs, would this be confusing to review? Would you recommend to focus on just one of the 4 topic areas?
I think this one is for me, Lotte.
Yes, I think so too.
No, thank you for asking, Rebecca. I understand. Look to the call text, and that's in fact our guidance work, our Bible in that respect. We are saying projects are expected to address at least one of the following areas. So you can indeed as well have 2 or 3. But keep in mind when you do that, that it is a credible project. When you address two, it's quite natural, and that it's not two complete separate projects. There should be a kind of benefit as well of having these two different areas. I would recommend. Look, we are asking as well the experts, what is proposed, is it credible? Do we really expect the outcomes? Different TRLs is possible, of course. That's a good question as well. Because look, in some technologies, you go quicker through the TRLs. And I mean, especially for instance, with artificial intelligence, maybe you start with an idea, but you can develop it rather quickly in that respect. And when you have much more on sensors, maybe you need a bit more time. So it is possible to have things on different TRLs at a certain point, but in the far end, does it bring together? It's another thought which is as well, and I picked this up as well into in the last conference. So we're talking about TRLs in the stage gate, but it's also because we're talking as well about sometimes components. And in fact, yeah, you can say, okay, it's not about the complete device, but you can still use this TRL as a kind of integration readiness level. How far get it as well into the integration into the full device? That's in fact as well a bit the holistic approach of the TRLs, of the stage gates. What I wanted to say as well, and you asked as well, a reflection, what Jonathan was saying, look, this call is much more on the lower stages. And what is very nice to see as well, we are in our calls obliged to say about the TRLs, but he gives a very good comparison between the TRLs and the stages. So keep that as a guidance. So in fact, in our call, in the research innovation actions, going up to TRL 5 is in fact almost going up to stage 3. Yeah, that's something to have in mind.
Thanks, Moses. I have another question for you. We saw that there are 10 different evaluation areas. So should an applicant address all of them in the Horizon Europe proposal? And I'm asking this because, as you know, the page limit is there, the space is limited, and how in detail should each of them then be described?
Yeah, a difficult question. I think it's also sometimes depending on it is low TRL, so maybe some are more obvious than others.
Yeah.
But I think that you have to use the ones which are at the moment for your developments, for your technology, what you are proposing, the most relevant. But have a look to all, because at a certain point we are saying, okay, we are not testing it yet on the environmental impact that is coming in later, for instance, or the social acceptance. But think about it. Would it be useful already to think about it in an early stage? Maybe it's not anymore later on in the project itself, but development by design, or we are saying as well circularity by design. When you start to think about all the evaluation areas in a very early stage, it's very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. We have a question about the upcoming social readiness criteria, and I think this one was for Jonathan, if you could give any more spoilers or insights about this social readiness. Thank you.
Spoilers and insights. Thanks, Andrea. It's a very interesting area, and we are only just starting to consider it at the moment, but it's clearly becoming more important in technology development and society in general to consider the impact on society. And I think it's very interesting to think about societal acceptability, as we started to call it in the framework, and then the concept of social readiness or societal readiness. And in the early discussions we've had on this so far, we've had the response that this is a real extra burden for technology developers to have to consider social readiness of a technology. And I think, building on what Matthijs just said, you can consider social readiness or indeed environmental acceptability at the early stages of technology development. It might not really be driving what you're doing or decisions that you're making, but it might have some implications for high-level technology choices that can guide you in a useful way, that can stop things being difficult later in a development process. So I think you can use the thoughts about social readiness at an early stage to guide those difficult decisions. But I also think, from the conversations we've had so far, that thinking about that burden on technology development, social readiness is a thing for the sector to consider as a whole. Is society ready for ocean energy? Is society ready to accept ocean energy and the implications or impacts or effects it has for society and for the environment? So it's something that we need to gather data for, and perhaps the guidance that we'll provide is, how do we provide the data that allows society to be ready for ocean energy and the ocean energy sector to chart that course towards social readiness. So it's early stages, but those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about at the moment. Input's very welcome on this, because this is quite an interesting topic.
I can imagine that might be difficult to think about that if you're really early on
Exactly.
your technology development. Like, society isn't aware of subcomponents and systems, and obviously have to think of the long-term impact, but an interesting topic to explore already.
Exactly.
Let me see if we have some further questions I haven't taken yet. An observation rather than a question. So Pablo's case study is significant as it demonstrates that development is not a linear process. Certain aspects of the technology's development path can proceed quicker than others, and evaluators and funders should be aware of that when assessing prior activity entry requirements. Indeed, if you want to comment on that, feel free to jump in. Do we agree with this this statement?
I do agree.
Yeah.
Experience shows that you can progress quicker in what respects some areas of the evaluation framework, but a bit slower than others. I think for a funding call, the key requirement is that you don't have many activities lagging on the critical requirements that are needed in this funding call. Otherwise, even if you can show that you are quite advanced in power conversion, that you are required to analyze the environmental implications, and you have not done significant activities on that respect, then you will fail, or at least will have some comments that will reduce your marks on that area. So
I don't know if it's the same for you. I think I lost you a little bit at the end. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Can't hear you very well at the end, but maybe it's not the same for others.
Probably it's my fault. I'm saying that they try to advance at the same pace in all of the evaluation areas as far as possible. That will be my advice.
Thank you, Pablo. I think we've gone through all the questions, or at least addressed the topics that were asked in the questions, and we are in fact right on time to wrap up now. So if any of the panelists have any final thoughts, now is the time to jump in. If not, we will end the webinar here. As we said earlier, the recording will be on the ETIP Ocean website along with all the presentations, so you can take a look at them afterwards as well. So I hope this clarified the topic for everyone today. I think at least I learned a lot myself. So thank you very much for our panelists today and all the participants, and see you in the next webinar. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.